Hello, my name is Trevor Phillips, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Housing Authority of the City of Salem, and I'd like to call this tonight's meeting of the City of Salem Housing Authority to order for Monday, December 11th, 2023. If the recorder could please call the roll.
Commissioner Nishioka?
Here.
Vice Chair Phillips?
Here.
Commissioner Gwynn? Here. Commissioner Gonzalez?
Here.
Commissioner Hoy?
Here.
Commissioner Nordyke? Absent. Commissioner Varney?
Here.
Resident Commissioner Villegas?
Here.
Chair Stapleton, absent.
Thank you. If you would all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And then I understand we have no public comments tonight? Okay, that brings us to tonight's consent calendar.
I move for additions to the agenda, and they consist of a replacement to Exhibit A to the resolution for item 3.3A concerning the public housing admissions and continued occupancy plan, and B, a new report, 3.3B, revising the Section 8 administrative plan.
I'll second that. And just clarify for the record, I did skip section 1.1, I apologize. So what we're voting on now is approval of additions and deletions of the agenda. So we're not on consent calendar yet. I messed up. So it's been seconded. Any discussion? Okay, if the recorder would please call the roll.
Commissioner Varney?
Aye.
Commissioner Nishioka?
Aye.
Vice Chair Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Gwynn?
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoy?
Aye.
Commissioner Nordyke? Absent. Resident Commissioner Villegas?
Aye.
Chair Stapleton, absent.
And that passes unanimously. So now, knowing that there's no public comment, I think we're on to tonight's consent calendar. You want me to see? Yeah. Did we do both?
No, it was just the additions.
Okay, that was additions. So now we're on to the consent calendar.
So I've already moved for the additions, and other than that, there's no changes in the consent calendar. Thank you, Mr. Atchins.
Could we just have you make a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Thank you. I move to accept the consent calendar. Second.
It's been moved by Member Nishioka, seconded by Member Gwynn. If the recorder would please call the roll.
Commissioner Nishioka?
Aye.
Vice Chair Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Gwynn?
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoy?
Aye.
Commissioner Nordyke, absent. Commissioner Varney?
Aye.
Resident Commissioner Villegas?
Aye.
Chair Stapleton, absent.
And the motion passes. Which brings us to information reports. I see that we're joined tonight by Housing Administrator Nicole Utz. Do you have anything you'd like to highlight for us this meeting?
Good evening, I'm Nicole Utz. I'm the Housing Administrator for Salem Housing Authority. There is one particular section that I did want to highlight. This really shows the resiliency of a lot of our residents. A mother of 3 with an infant being diagnosed with terminal illness, she enrolled in FSS on TANF, which is welfare assistance, with the belief that she couldn't do it. She spent 3 years in the FSS program. She graduated bringing home approximately $9,000 a month in earned income and an escrow check of $21,732.77 that she intends to put towards purchasing a home for herself and her children. She not only received support, but also found the belief that she could do it, and she did it. She's presently on zero HAP, no assistance from us for the next 6 months, and she'll likely be purchasing her own home for her family. That is exactly what the Salem Housing Authority is here for, and we just wanted to make that highlight that even when you don't believe you can, you really can if you put your mind to it, and that's what we're here to support. I also wanted to let you know that Mahonia Crossings, we have actually sent our first few over. We're intending to start seeing some lease ups there after January 15th of 2024. So that's pretty exciting news. About the same time that we're starting lease up process for Sequoia Crossings. We're getting very busy into the leasing of 2 very large projects, along with a software conversion, which is going about well as a software conversion. So we're hoping for some grace and patience and understanding from all of our residents and landlords as we continue through this process, that hopefully by January we'll have it completed. We had a wonderful turnout at We See You. Our outreach team was there and did a lot of collaboration, meeting and greeting, and they supplied individuals with some immediate needs. We also participated in Shop with a Cop, which was, this is my 20th year of, or almost 20th year of Shop with a Cop. And we had 700 residents' children that were allowed to attend that. And I think our overall turnout was 615 from our area and 50 from the canyon. So quite an impressive turnout, and over 125 volunteers from the law enforcement, which we greatly appreciate their participation. And that's all I had tonight.
Thank you, Nicole, for being here and sharing that excellent update and the good news. I don't always sit in this chair. I'm just the vice chair, and I'm filling in tonight. I know our hearts and minds are with Councilor Stapleton, who normally chairs this committee. She can't be with us tonight. But I really appreciate the good work that the Housing Authority does, that all of your members are doing. It's always something to look forward to, the passion that you guys bring to this and the difference you make in our community. So please convey that gratitude to all the people that work in the Housing Authority on our behalf.
I will. Thank you.
Do any of my colleagues have any questions, anything else they want to bring up at this time?
It's not a question so much, but just a comment that I was at Shop with a Cop on Saturday morning and was absolutely blown away by the machine that you guys have created to take care of all of those people and to get them in and out in an efficient amount of time. So it was beautiful work, and congratulations. The investment is so worthwhile. And the We See You event also, I stopped by there for a time and got to hand out cookies. And again, just another wonderful place where we are doing good work in Salem. The other organization that was involved in the Shop with a Cop is it Believe?
Believe.
Can you
in
tell
your
us just a
community.
little bit about that, Nicole, and your partnership with them on Shop with a Cop?
Believe is a nonprofit. They have community resources. They also do shop back to school, and we get to refer so many children to that from our agency, which provides them, it's a smaller amount of children, higher number that they're able to assist to make sure they have back to school clothing, backpacks, necessary needs to get back to school. When we originally started Shop with a Cop, it was under another nonprofit, and it was incorporated into Believe that took it over. Believe is a nonprofit in Marion County. We have called upon their assistance at times to help fulfill a need for diapers or baby items, different community needs. I know that they've even supplied a bicycle at one point. We also ran into a situation where we had a homeless rental assistance client that was just outside the city limits of Boundary. Our assistants can't provide for that area, and Believe stepped in and took over for providing that additional help. So not only children, but adults, they've really been there for us to help be that extra little need.
Well, you guys work very well together, that's obvious.
Thank you.
Thank you for all that.
Thank you for highlighting that, and thank you again for your work. Any other comments or questions? If not, I will say that this meeting of the Housing Authority for Salem is adjourned.
Thank you.
Call to order the meeting of the Urban Renewal Agency for the City of Salem for Monday, December 11th, 2023. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Board Member Stapleton absent. Board Member Nishioka.
Here.
Board Member Phillips.
Here.
Board Member Gwynn.
Here.
Board Member Gonzalez.
Here.
Board Member Hoy.
Here.
Board Member Nordike.
Here.
Board Member Varney.
Here.
Chair Hoy.
Here. All right. Counselor Phillips, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Not tonight.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, we are then on to the consent calendar. Oh, I'm sorry, hold on. We are not on the consent calendar. We have public comment. All right, online we have Charles Weathers. If you could turn your camera on. Charles, you have 3 minutes. You'll have a timer there on the screen that'll keep your timer going for you, and go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. Do you guys need me to state my address? Is that this one?
Your address or your ward?
Yeah, I live at 1865 Church Street Southeast in Salem. And I'm just here to provide any clarifications or answers to any questions you may have concerning that item on your consent calendar. I think it's an action item. I don't know how this stuff works. 3.38. I'm the owner, the developer, and the requester of the Riverfront Downtown Urban Renewal Capital Improvement Grant Program exception for this property. I support the staff's report, and I appreciate the work that Cherie and Kristen put in. And like I said, I'm just here if you guys have any questions for that.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Weathers? Councilor Nordike.
Thank you. Yes, briefly, what is your vision for this property? I see that you want to include 16 rental units. Do you have a sense at this early juncture what the price range will be for those units?
Yeah, thank you. We're calling the property Retro Electro. If you're familiar with 236 Commercial, it's where Green Thumb was recently until they relocated. And the back of the building has kind of been scabbed together, and it's like a weird warehousey garage. And so we plan to demolish that, reveal the true rear of the original historic building, and in that place that we've demolished, build 12 units in a new construction, leave some courtyard space in between, and then remodel the second floor of the existing historic building into 4 other units. So 16 in total in that way, but it's sort of retro in the front and electro in the back, with it being electric alley and so forth. And so, but to answer your question about pricing, market at the time of completion, there's no plan for affordability. The bank needs a certain cover of the debt, and unfortunately that doesn't make that work at this time. But there's a mix of studios, 1-beds, and 1-beds plus a den, which is technically a 1-bed, but may have room if more than one person wanted to live in there. That is, I suppose, an unofficial option. And so it ranges in sizes from 350 to 600 on those studios, and then 550 to 800 on those 1-beds.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Councilor Nishioka.
Not so much a question, but hey, that sounds really cool with the different makeup of the locations, whether you're in the alley or on the street. So good job. Thanks, Charles.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been great doing historic properties downtown and then new construction over on Broadway. And so to have a mix of the both is something we're really excited about.
We really appreciate all your great work in the downtown. Lots of great things are happening, and you're definitely in the center of a lot of that, so we really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Now we are on to the consent calendar. Councilor Phillips.
I move consent calendar.
I'll second that.
Motion by Phillips, second by Nishioka. Councilor, to your motion.
Tonight's consent calendar consists of the November 27th, 2023 draft Urban Renewal Agency minutes and item 3.3A, the Riverfront Downtown Urban Renewal Capital Improvement Grant Program exception for ASM9 LLC. And that concludes tonight's consent calendar.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Board Member Varney.
Aye.
Board Member Stapleton absent. Board Member Nishioka.
Aye.
Board Member Phillips.
Aye.
Board Member Gwynn.
Aye.
Board Member Gonzalez.
Aye.
Board Member Hoy.
Aye.
Board Member Nordike.
Aye.
Chair Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. All right, I see that we have Ms. Rutherford here, but we don't have any information reports. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
Good evening. I would just clarify that with our urban renewal grant program and our grant exceptions, affordability has never been a criteria. That's something that we've never looked at adding to the program, because we do have that covered in the MUTIP program, which is the tax exemption program, and that's an affordability requirement for 50 units or more, but that does not apply to the smaller developments. And with our urban renewal, especially in our riverfront urban renewal area, that program, a lot of our projects, I mean, we do have new construction projects, but we also have a lot of adaptive reuse projects. And that's one of the reasons that we've never included affordability, just because of the cost drivers with doing adaptive reuse. So I just want to clarify that for everyone.
Appreciate that. That's helpful context. So this truly is urban renewal, as opposed to some of our other projects that we do with affordable housing. Thank you. Is there anything, nothing further on our agenda? So Urban Renewal Agency is adjourned. All right. Call to order the meeting of the Salem City Council for Monday, December 11th, 2023. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Stapleton absent. Counselor Nishioka.
Here.
Counselor Phillips.
Here.
Counselor Gwynn.
Here.
Counselor Gonzalez.
Here.
Counselor Hoy.
Here?
Counselor Nordike.
Here.
Counselor Varney.
Here.
Mayor Hoy.
Here. Councilor Phillips, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Yes, I move additions to the agenda.
I'll second that.
Motion by Phillips, second by Nishioka. Councilor, to your motion.
Tonight's additions consist of the revised report for item 3.3A, applications for transportation safety projects to the ODOT Arts Program, and item 5E, a new report and decision whether to interview candidates for the Citizen Budget Committee and Planning Commission, and just a reordering of the agenda as the final issue, to correcting the agenda to indicate that the year-end review presentation will occur before we adjourn.
Excellent. And just for what it's worth for people listening and not actually looking at our agenda, that arts program is really an acronym. It's not really art. It's public works, it's roads and sidewalks and things. It's not really, much to my dismay the other day in a staff meeting when they briefed me on it, it's not really about art. It just sounds like it. Is there further discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
There is further discussion. Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see you.
That's all right, I know. Not feeling well enough to be there in person this evening. Is there a staff report to accompany item 5.E? Because I don't see it on the online agenda, and I don't see an email containing information with 5.E.
That was sent out later this afternoon, around 3 o'clock maybe, to the group.
I don't see it in my inbox, so.
Okay.
Yeah,
I can
someone could
forward that
please
to you.
Counselor,
Thank
you
you.
cut out, if you said if someone could,
Please email it to me. I don't see an email containing that staff report.
I'm not seeing a head nod yet that somebody's going to take that on.
I'll go ahead and forward that email to her.
Great, thank you. It's on its
Thank
way,
you.
Counselor.
Thank you.
Further discussion on the additions or deletions to the agenda? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Gonzalez. Counselor Hoy.
Aye.
Counselor Nordike.
Aye.
Counselor Varney.
Aye.
Counselor Stapleton absent. Counselor Nishioka.
Aye.
Counselor Phillips.
Aye.
Counselor Gwynn.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye, motion passes. It's time now for council and city manager comments. Do we have any? Councilor Phillips.
Just wanted to again say that our hearts and minds are with Council President Virginia Stapleton, who couldn't be with us tonight. It's always big shoes to fill in for her on the Housing Authority. I did my best. Thank you, Councilor Nishioka, for being my vice chair for that role. But I also wanted to take this opportunity, it's the last meeting for this year, 2023, to just say to the city, you know, happy Hanukkah if you celebrate, Merry Christmas to those of you for later this year, and happy holidays for those in our community who celebrate any of a myriad of other holidays. And I wanted to compliment our city attorney on his festive tie this evening. It's very nice. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Councillor. Further comments? Councillor Nishioka.
Thank you, Mayor Hoy. I just want to say that I had the opportunity to, on Friday evening, go down to the holiday lights at Riverfront Park, and the tree was lit up by our deputy manager, Scott Archer, and it was great to see all the people coming for their hot chocolate, stand in line to see Santa and get their sleigh rides. It was a really nice activity going on. That was all.
Thank you for covering that, Councillor. I appreciate it. I had the opportunity yesterday to go to Salem Speaks Up, which is a great event. I encourage everyone to attend that next year. It's an annual event. It's commemorating Human Rights Day, talking about human rights issues. And then also the menorah lighting last evening, which was a much better weather than last year, where it was frigid cold last year. So yeah, it was a great event as well. So, are there any further comments? Councillor Nordyke.
Good evening, one and all. Once again, I'm sorry I'm not feeling well enough to attend in person this evening. I do look forward to the discussion. I do want to extend happy holidays to one and all. This is indeed a time of year when many people choose to celebrate their holiday, to share in their faith with their loved ones, or however that they choose to celebrate. And I, for one, greatly appreciate the prominence of the menorah in our downtown core for all of our Jewish friends and family members in the community. I think it's extremely important as we see anti-Semitism continue to ripple through this community and around the country, that the menorah has a prominent place in our hearts and in our downtown core area. I also look forward to the discussion tonight, and I really want to tell everyone who counseled me, who sent me an email, who contacted me expressing concerns about the future of our library. I share your concerns. I'm very, very troubled by where we are with our library right now, and I hear you. So I look forward to our conversation tonight. I do know that because of budgetary shortfalls, we will have a variety of difficult decisions to make over time. But my simple ask is that the city staff work with us when we're considering major changes in services that can impact all members of our community, but especially those most vulnerable. Many of them depend upon our library for access to a safe place to work, to study, to search for employment, to seek self-betterment, to find a place to take their kids to learn how to read, and on the list goes. So I look forward to the conversation tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there additional comments? Councillor Hoy.
Well, I'd like to dovetail on Councillor Nordyke's comments. We all heard from quite a few people over the weekend after the announcement of the library closure, which came as a surprise to me. Not in the long run, maybe, but for January 2nd to be the start date for that. Anyway, I feel overwhelmingly like folks don't feel heard. And so I wanted to just share some of their comments. If you were to open later on 1 or 2 days, you could keep the library open until 8 for working individuals. Something like game night could continue. Please take this into consideration. Reducing the hours of operation at the West Salem branch is shameful. I'm sure there are better ways. This decision must have come from library staff, maybe city management. It's very strange this announcement came just last week and a day or two after the library posted an open position to hire a librarian for customer experience. The library will not be open for students to study after 5 p.m. This person had an idea of charging Kaiser residents to use our library. They voted down establishing their own library, and yet they can check out up to 10 books from our library without paying a fee. That would bring in some money. This decision feels punitive in nature because of the recent vote against the payroll tax. I'm incredibly disappointed and implore you to reconsider your decision and balance the budget in a way that allows an important public institution to function at its best. Please keep the library open later on weekends and on certain weekdays. Many working families in this city, the families who pay taxes to fund these libraries, can only visit after work or school on the weekend. Working families need to access the library on Sundays, cut a day during the week, one with low attendance, and restore Sundays. Quit punishing us for voting against your employee tax. The City Council becomes more out of touch with what the tax-paying community wants with each new day. Why on earth would you close the library on a Sunday, one of the highest traffic days of use by families in the Salem community? You could have selected any weeknight and service interruption would have been minimized substantially. Your continued wrong-headed decision-making is astounding to those of us who selected you to serve as our representatives and begs the question, how many days until we can elect someone new to replace each and every one of you? Get your act together. The people of this city deserve to be heard and consulted with. What I'm talking about tonight is a change that hasn't happened yet. Instilling fear should not be allowed. Communication is our friend. Without it, we appear as a vacuum, a closed-door group with no room for input or consideration. That's not where I want to live, and that is not how I want to serve. I want us to do better, and in fact, I insist.
Are there additional comments? Councilor Gwynn.
Okay, sure. It's, Julie, that's going to be hard to follow, but
Go for it.
since this is our last city council meeting for 2023, I wanted to say thank you to my fellow councilors, Mayor Hoy, our city manager, and city staff for your grace as I'm learning the ropes. And I appreciate the relationship that I've developed with each and every one of you. If there's one thing that I've learned this past year, it's that each of us have a deep love and commitment to this community. As we look to 2024, it's my sincere hope that we continue to work together to make Salem better.
Thank you, Councilor. Are there additional comments? All right. We'll move on to proclamations. That is just an acknowledgement of the canvass of votes from the recent election. And now we are on to public comment. First up, we have Lindsay King. If you'd step up to the microphone, introduce yourself with either your address or your ward for the record. Reminder that you have 3 minutes. When the yellow light starts to flash, that means you have 1 minute left. And then when the red light comes on, that means your time's up. And if you could just end your remarks at that time, I'd appreciate it. If you hit to start, just hit the button there to turn on the green light. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Lindsay King, I'm a senior planner for Brand Land Use. I'm here to discuss item 32C. Well, not discuss, but give comment on it. Today, you're being asked to consider a resolution that would reduce the land use application fee for a comprehensive plan amendment and zone change by 50%, bringing the total fee owed down to $6,241 from $12,482. We believe the application fee should be entirely waived in this case, or the application should be city initiated. The property at 650 15th Street was rezoned during the Salem update from industrial comprehensive plan designation and an industrial or general industrial zoning designation to multiple family residential. Unfortunately, there is an issue that lies within the deed. There's a deed restriction from DEQ that prohibits the property from being used for residential or agricultural uses. This is because there are high levels of contamination present in the soils because the property was used to store petroleum and other oil products in the 70s. We submitted public comment that have the deed in there, as well as another comment regarding it. We do believe that the most appropriate path forward would be the city to refund the client and the application fee, and to initiate the comprehensive plan amendment and zone change on behalf of that property owner to restore the previous designations and bring that property back into compliance with DEQ. This would further alleviate any burden put onto the property owner It would eliminate the requirement for them to attend and present at public hearings, respond to any opposition received, or hire consultants to represent them in the case. And so that's it.
All right, thank you for your testimony. Next up is Beth Schmidt.
Good evening, Mayor Hoy. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
City Council members, thank you. Mr. Staley. I'm here today all lit up. My name is Beth Schmidt. I am the Salem Kaiser Safe Routes to School Program Coordinator. And I just want to begin with the importance of being lit up, right? We're pedestrians, and right now our campaign is called Be Safe, Be Seen, and it gets dark earlier and everyone is out walking, and so I wore this all for you so that you could see the importance of just wearing something that lights up, of something reflective. Anything that you could possibly do to be seen as a pedestrian is going to improve the likelihood of you staying alive. As many of you know, we've had a lot of pedestrian fatalities this year in Salem, and so it is my greatest priority to continue to educate the students of Salem Kaiser Public Schools about pedestrian safety and being safe and being seen. But tonight I am here in support of the items 3.3A and 3.3B, I believe.
A.
Thank you. Anyway, so Safe Routes to Schools in support of pedestrian safety and bicycle safety and infrastructure improvements. I'm not sure where Brian Martin is because I haven't met him yet, but yes. So, you know, my partner is Salem Kaiser Public Schools, and I work closely with them in ensuring student safety. So we are in support of your All Roads TSB application. So I hope that you will approve it. If that's what you do, is you're going to approve that application for the Sunnyview and Hollywood area, and also for the Market Street and 15th. It helps to support the safety of the North Salem High School students and McKay students and Sweegle Elementary students. So anything that you do that you can see infrastructure improvements so that our students and communities and families can be safe, we're in support of. And I think that's everything. It's blinking at me, so.
Thank you so much for your testimony.
You're welcome. Even if you have a flashlight on your phone, I want to tell you, flash the light. If you're walking anywhere, just flash the light. That might keep you alive, so think about it.
Thank you. Next up is Drew Cohen.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Drew Cohen, and I am the City of Salem's Ward 4 Budget Committee representative. The reason for my testimony tonight is threefold. First, I'll offer recommendations to the Revenue Task Force. Second, I'll offer commentary on the recently failed employee payroll tax. And third, if time is granted, I'll offer suggestions on the upcoming budget phase. In the last two council sessions have focused on the makeup of the proposed Revenue Task Force, and I believe it is important that we have equal representation on this task force. I.e., it would be unfair if we have 10 members from Ward 4, 1 from Ward 2, and 0 from Ward 8. Here's my recommendation. There are 8 wards. Each ward should have 3 representatives, which would bring the task force up to 24 people in line with other councilors' remarks. To address the learning curve for this task force and the limited window of opportunity to discuss these matters, I believe that city staff or Moss Adams should create homework packets for each member outlining the history of Salem's budget and potential revenue options, why we are here now and the need for the large revenue, and how our other options compare with other like-sized cities. I have 2 questions for this group to consider. First, regarding non-English speaking residents of Salem, to fully include them, who during these meetings would translate into different languages, and who would pay for these translation services? Second, this body has just eliminated several fees. For example, no late fees or parking fees at the library, and free bus tickets for youths. Are you going to place some guardrails on this revenue task force? Please also be considerate and wary of the law of unintended consequences where raising fees will actually lower revenue. Regarding the recently failed employee payroll tax, I think it is necessary for this body to engage in completing a post-mortem on this tax. It is important to understand why this effort failed if we are to gain clarity for any future increase in fees or taxes. For instance, did this tax fail because it was poorly communicated to the members of the city? Did it fail because it was too regressive, i.e. everyone pays one rate versus having an income-based model like our income taxes? Did it fail because it was not given to the people to begin with, and therefore the people voted no based on principle? These are only some of the questions that need to be addressed before this Revenue Task Force completes their recommendations if this process is to have any credibility. Lastly, as we approach the budget creation phase of next year's fiscal budget, here are some recommendations. The state of Oregon requires each agency submit a 10% reduction option with their budget. This provides the governor with the opportunity to move around general fund dollars to support her vision and new initiatives. It is also an opportunity to potentially reduce programs that are not working well or streamline duplicative efforts. There's currently no mandate for this agency directors here in the City of Salem. However, I think it is prudent for this council to authorize this step in the budget process. I also implore you to leverage Marion County and the state of Oregon in addressing some of City of Salem's expenditures, such as homelessness. I also recommend that the City Council continue to engage with the City of Salem Chamber of Commerce and SEDCOR to increase economic development with the city's businesses sector to increase more revenue. And I'm done. Thank you for your time, and I welcome your questions or feedback if you have.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Councilor Phillips, the consent calendar.
I move tonight's consent calendar.
I'll second that.
Motion by Phillips, second by Nishioka. Councilor, to your motion.
Tonight's consent calendar consists of 3.1A, the November 20th, 2023 draft minutes for the joint work session with City Council and Marion County Board of Commissioners. 3.1B, the November 20th, 2023 draft City Council work session minutes. 3.1C, the November 27th, 2023 draft City Council minutes. And then items 3.2A, the multiple unit housing tax incentive program application by Brandon Fallman seeking a 10-year property tax exemption for a 7-unit residential project located at 890 Commercial Street 890 Commercial Street Northeast. Item 3.2B, the acquisition of property for the Sunnyview Road Northeast and Hollywood Drive Northeast pedestrian crossing improvements project. Item 3.2C, consideration of a land use fee reduction for request for 650 15th Street Southeast. Items 3.3A, applications for transportation safety projects through the Oregon Department of Transportation All Roads Transportation Safety Arts Program. And item 3.3B, the Marion County Ambulance Service Area Franchise Agreement Renewal. And that concludes tonight's consent calendar.
Thank you, Councilor. Is there discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Councillor Hoy.
Aye.
Councillor Nordike.
Aye.
Councillor Varney.
Aye.
Councillor Stapleton absent. Councillor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councillor Phillips.
Aye.
Councillor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councillor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. All right, we are on to item 5A, the Revenue Task Force Charter and Member Selection. And I see Ms. Rosillas has approached the podium. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, that was fast. Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Colleen Rosillas from Moss Adams. So last week together we talked through options for the Revenue Task Force, including process, what the desired outcome is, timelines, things like that. So in your packet tonight you have 3 attachments. The first is a proposed charter for the Revenue Task Force reflecting that input. That charter also includes your desired information for demographics, representation,
qualities of folks who might serve on the task force. That is also reflected then in a draft application, which will be uploaded into the city's survey tool, and that's your third attachment. And the second attachment is a calendar view of our timeline for the prior 6 weeks, or for, I guess, the 6 weeks we're right in the middle of, so that we can establish and then seat the task force. So we're here tonight to get your feedback on that information that was presented to you. We can do a couple of things. We can project what you have in your packets in front of you and walk through it, or we can simply, assuming you had a chance to take a look at your packet, get feedback on information that's in that charter and about that application so that we can hopefully finalize that this evening.
I think at this point, we've been through it line by line. I think now would be time for just people to bring back any concerns that they have.
Great.
Regarding, and we could just go to them, I think, as the concerns come up.
Yeah, so can we please start with the charter?
Absolutely. I actually have a concern about language under desired representation. And it's the line, the second line in, it says one representative from each ward appointed by city council members. Ward representation may overlap with other affiliations. So this was, I was trying to get at this at our last meeting. That word appoint, it's under a section called desired representation. And I'm not clear on what appoint would mean in this context, because I thought I was hearing at the last meeting that, oh, that would just, basically it's more of a nomination where they would go into the boards and commissions process. So I just want to be really clear so we all have the same understanding on what that is. Also, I'm wondering also, we didn't actually call out a mayor's appointment or nomination, and I would like that to actually be called out. Typically that's an at-large position.
So nominated is probably a better word for that, so that can be updated. And then we can make that very clear that it's council members and the mayor, so that there will be 9 total nominated by council.
Thank you. Are there additional comments or concerns about the charter language? Councilor Barney.
Thank you, Mayor Hoy. I had a question about the purpose part of it. In the second paragraph, it says the purpose of the Revenue Task Force is to explore new additional revenue sources. I was just wondering, will this include a review of the ones previously considered by the previous task force, or is this totally separate?
Yeah, so we won't be taking the 2018 task force and refreshing it, but certainly those same options are on the table, but we're going to start with a very broad net and then narrow down. So it may come out with similar recommendations, or it may not. It really depends.
Okay, thanks, Colleen.
Yeah.
Councilor Gwynn.
I just wanted to state for the record that I really liked Drew Cohen's suggestion of 3 counselors per, 3 members of the task force per ward. So for what it's worth, I appreciated that suggestion.
Thank you, Councilor. Additional comments? Councilor Phillips. Okay. Councilor Nordyke, you're next.
I guess I just want to comment and ask, I, at the prior meeting, had advocated for as many as 30 people being part of this task force prior to fully understanding that we as council would not be serving on that. So I think I'm comfortable with the number somewhere between 20 and possibly 24 with maybe a couple alternates. I too, I think at a minimum, the idea that someone is nominated or serves from each ward plus at large to account for the mayor's position, I think is reasonable. I would be open to the idea of having like 1 to 2, like no less than 1, as many as 2 per ward, through the nominating process of like us as members of council. But I do want it to be a nomination. I don't have the bandwidth to like background check and really look into. I think we should use the standardized process of the boards and commissions, so I like that. And then if we do have as many as 28 people serving, I do want to make sure that we have sufficient openings for the important stakeholders and for diversity of people that are not typically, that serve. I do think that this really, does need to be an effort to hear from a wide set of our community to kind of reestablish lines of communication. I guess I just want to make sure, are we doing this in real time, and will there need to be a motion at the end of this with these specifics?
Tonight is it, Counselor.
Yeah.
We are going to, whatever we finalize tonight will be how we move forward. That's my intent.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just going to delay the whole process because we're now heading into a 1-month break, and that would be, I think, a really difficult time loss.
So just a follow-up question, I think I know the answer to, but the way I kind of view this is like an actual like city council meeting, but to a certain extent, this is like also a little bit of a work session because we are trying to like figure this out in a little more open-ended way.
Yep.
Is that accurate?
I think that's a really accurate assessment. We're kind of workshopping this thing on the fly.
Okay.
And yep, we're gonna, hopefully we've been narrowing it down to what people are comfortable with, and tonight we'll have a final product. That's my goal. Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would recommend 2 representatives nominated from each ward, including the mayor. If we do that, that's 18 spots. And beyond that, we could look to include the stakeholders that are identified in the bullet-pointed list of desired representation. The business rep, Salem 350, LBA, city employee union representative, plus the ex officio non-voting reps, just as an example. I think that strikes a good balance. And candidly, it would be hard for me to choose just one person from Ward 7. I have a lot of great folks who are hyper engaged and would be more than happy to serve on this task force. So having up to 2 people that I could nominate, assuming I have at least 2 applications, would be desirable, and I suspect other colleagues feel the same way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Further comments? Councilor Gonzalez.
I'm okay with the 2 per ward, only because the other people that are either at large or outside of living outside the city limits, their voice is important because a lot of the frustration came from people that didn't live in Salem, and they worked here, they came into Salem, and they felt like their voice wasn't represented. So as people that don't live within the city limits, I'd consider them important too.
Thank you, Councilor. Further comments? Councilor Nishioka.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Councilor Nordyke's recommendation of 2 per ward. I would stipulate that this could be a resident or a business in the ward, so that, as I stated last week, the possibility of somebody that has a business in Ward 2 but doesn't live in the city at all would be a good representation for this. So I would be trying to find that diversity when I would be looking. I also liked Mr. Cohen's suggestion of SEDCOR. That's not listed, so I don't know if that's something that we should consider. And if we did that, I'm calculating that would be about 24 members with the non-voting additional. So I think that sounds like a reasonable number to work with. I think beyond 25 might get more challenging, my opinion.
Councilor, the way I heard Mr. Cohen's suggestion, I might be wrong, but I heard him as suggesting that we should continue to engage with them and the chamber and others to build economic.
I thought he was suggesting that they might be on.
I didn't hear it that way, but I could be wrong. So I think it's important right now. I'm not really clear on where we're headed on the nominating process. So I'm trying to wrap my head around it. So I'm hearing that we want to have everybody nominate 2, but if we're also opening up to the public, what does that mean? So are the 2, I guess I'm trying to figure out, what are we saying here? The councilors are going to nominate 2 people, and those are the 2 people, or they get to nominate 2 and public gets to apply as well? I'm not quite clear it seems like we're talking about 2 different things.
If you take a look at the calendar, what we talked about last week would be folks who are interested in serving on the task force would apply. We assume you all probably have folks in your wards you're going to encourage to apply. The nominations from council members and the mayor would come from those applicants. So we'll take that first step of, we have an application deadline. Applications are then distributed to council and the mayor for review and identification of folks to nominate. There's also, that's the moment where we can pause and say we don't have enough applicants, it's not enough representation, we need to do some targeted outreach. So then the boards and commissions committee can meet and say, here's our batch of council nominees, here's everybody else. Let's seat the task force based on the representation that council desires.
Is that everybody else's understanding as well? Okay. I'm seeing head nods. Any other feedback? Councilor Hoy.
Go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to Mr. Cohen's remarks also about some, I think he called it homework, but a history of how we got here, why we're here, so people have context for the position that we're in and presented with.
Loud and clear. So in our first meeting discussing this, we talked about spending at least the first 2 meetings of the task force purely educational, context setting. We have to agree on what problem we're trying to solve, and that's really important. So we absolutely will.
Councilor Varney.
I just wanted to ask, are we going through section by section, or are we just considering the charter as a whole?
Right now, we're just, any comment anywhere in the charter is open for comment. Councilor Gwynn.
So I don't want to beat a dead horse by any means.
Okay.
But I'm kind of with you. If I make a nomination of 2 people, is it still going to the committee, the Boards and Commissions Committee, who is then going to decide whether they like my nominations? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it would still go through that process. I would hope that the committee would follow the charter and what council has agreed to in establishing the task force and not override any appointee. I think the only difference or a situation where that might occur would be if the mayor, because his appointees are at large, might nominate the same person. And so that's something we'd want to deal with on an individual basis.
Councilor Varney? Where's your hand up? Sorry. Okay. Councilor Nishioka.
Thank you. I think, as I understand it, Colleen is saying that if you have people that you would like to apply, you don't appoint them, you ask them to apply.
Nominate.
Yes, to nominate, and then they would fill out the application and go through the process. That's how I understand it. And then, if I may add,
Sure.
In the charter, and I know that last week we talked about providing a stipend, and I recognize the reason that that was presented to try to help compensate those that may struggle with being able to take this much time away or have childcare needs. But I'm a little concerned that maybe this is something that we should not do this time until we've had an opportunity to review all our boards and commissions and potentially look at whether we should be offering stipends to certain boards or commissions, or none of them or all of them. So I'm a little concerned about the stipend. I know it's not a huge amount of money off of the budget, but I'm just not sure I'm ready to make that jump yet.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Varney.
Thank you, Mayor Roy. I agree with Councilor Nishioka. I think the intent for the stipend is good to reduce barriers to member participation, but I don't think the way it is set up as just the $100 is correct. I agree we should look at this for the future for boards and commissions. I think other cities have done things like maybe waive, I don't know, an operations fees or something or other for members, but I think there are other options to look at, but not at this tonight. In terms of the stipend, I would rather not offer the stipend.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Hoy.
Thank you. I was just going to agree with Councilor Nishioka on that as well, so thank you.
Councilor Phillips.
So I appreciate the conversation about the stipends. That being said, I still support it pretty emphatically. So for a process point of view, I guess when we do get to a point where we're voting on this, will we be voting on it like one section at a time, or how will that work?
Well, I would anticipate us maybe agreeing to a set of revisions that we can all, and I think it sounds like we have consensus until this one. And then we could vote on the document as a whole, and then we could vote on edits, or we could vote on removing the things individually. I would want to do those individually, though. So we could vote on either yes stipends or no stipends and that sort of thing. And then at the end, we could vote on the overall document, unless the city attorney thinks we should do it some other way.
Generally, it's good to just make sure we're clear on whatever the direction is. So if you have true consensus on particular issues, it would be good for Colleen or staff to state exactly those elements that you're voting on as a whole.
Thank you. So how about we do a kind of a reset right now to make sure that we do have that consensus. So with the exception of stipends, because I'm not hearing consensus on that yet, can you go through the edits that you have heard from us so far, Colleen?
Yes, I've heard 2 edits so far. So the first is 2 representatives from each ward nominated by city council members, plus 2 representatives nominated by the mayor, and that representation may overlap with other affiliations, and that's underneath desired representation. And the other is anywhere it says appoint, change to nominate.
Okay. Is everybody on the board with that so far? Councilor Phillips.
I just want to clarify what that might end up looking like. So we would have, in this scenario, no less than 2 persons serving per each ward, but they may have been nominated by the individual councilors, or they may have been the public who applied through a different, application process, the public application process.
We're saying we want a minimum of 20 people.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to apply publicly. So everyone has to fill out the survey and say, I want to do this. Here's where I live. Here are my characteristics, and affirm that they want to serve on the task force. You will all receive, everyone in your ward, choose 2 as your nominees. There may be extra. You might have 10 people from your ward apply. And so of that, there might be some more folks who check other boxes that end up getting seated. We are going to say we're hoping for 20 to 25. The charter says 20 to 30. So that's part of the conversation then the boards and commissions committee will have. My recommendation is the smaller, closer to 20, the better. But we wanted to give you some flexibility.
How does that sound?
I'm okay with that.
Okay. Everybody okay? Are we consensus like that's the document that we want to vote on? And then we can also take up it might just be easier to take up the stipend issue first and then the whole document at the end.
So, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
What I'm hearing is we would put a motion on the table with staff recommendation as Colleen just set forth. We have a second for that, and then if there's additional proposed changes to that document, they'd be motions to amend that main motion.
Okay, thank you. Are we at a point where we're ready to vote, or are we still talking? Councilor Hoy.
Might sound kind of crazy, but could we change this to a budget task force and maybe kill 2 birds? Just a thought.
My thought on that is we have a citizen budget committee. We've been kind of trying to keep these as separate processes. That's my thought.
I would not recommend that primarily for a timeline perspective. So your budget needs to be adopted by June 30th. This task force could go longer than that. We're hoping that we'll be able to get you recommendations in July to consider, but if it goes longer, you're not Congress, you can't have a continuing resolution and just keep the same budget going forward. So you do have to pass a balanced budget by June 30th.
Thank you.
We ready? Nope, we're not ready to vote. Councilor Gwynn.
I'm just wondering, on the stipend, I see both sides, and I would hate to have a single mom who needs that $100 to be able to participate in this task force not do it because she can't pay for childcare. So is there a way for us to have, like, the person could request it, where we don't just pay it carte blanche, but if the person needs it, they could request, I don't know.
I think the language is that they can waive it. So probably, I would imagine that right up front, we would ask people if they want to fill out a waiver, if they wanted to waive the stipend, as opposed to having to request it. I don't know.
But couldn't we, rather than say, could you waive it, say, do you need it or want it?
I'm looking at you.
Sure. So some of the things we've talked about is you could have an opt-in versus an opt-out. So if someone wants it, they can request it, certainly. Depending on how much process you want to add to this, we could have a need-based application similar to what we do for the utility rates. I would let staff respond to that as appropriate.
We do that through a third party at this point. It's not a city function. So I would like to keep it as simple as possible. That's my goal, is keep this as simple as possible, for sure. Counselor, did I see your hand? Counselor Gonzalez.
Yeah, I'm okay with the stipend, whether it's opt-in. I mean, whatever's simpler. As we talk about other boards and commissions, we're always kick the can down the road easily. We like to do that. So I'd rather just start with this committee, see what people opt in, get an idea, start to learn. And that way, as we start to relook at the whole board and committee structure, us as a city are going to think, wait a minute, we better be really thoughtful about what committees we're going to have and make sure that those voices are real, because they're going to want some money. Because right now, it's just a lot of volunteerism, and I feel a lot of these boards and committees are overlooked. A lot of the voices, they feel unheard. And so I just don't want, I want people to feel like their time matters, because it matters to me. So I'd be down for that. Yeah.
Thank you, Counselor. I agree wholeheartedly with what you just said. I really feel like it's an important thing. And granted, it's not as important to some folks who are of means, but I think that's something that we're struggling with as a city, like just for this group, and our own lack of compensation. I think it keeps people from serving, and I think it's time that we start to make that coming of age leap to where at some point that's not going to be an option. So this might be a good way to do that. That's my thought. Other comments? Councilor Nishioka.
Thank you, and thank you, Councilor Gonzalez. That was a great comment, and I with Councilor Gwynn's comment that people can waive it, and I would hope that maybe if they didn't feel it was necessary that they would do that. So I may retract my thought process on this and just kind of see how it goes. But I do want to point out that there will be open houses, there will be opportunities for those that may not be able to participate, or for those that apply and aren't selected, can still chime in and present information and participate. So it's not like they wouldn't be able to have opportunities to at least give some thoughts. But at this point, I think I've heard enough people feel that this might be the opportunity to allow compensation. So I will retract my concern.
All right. At this point, the document does include the $100 opt-out version. So if we want to change that, we need to take an action to change that. Councilor Gwynn.
I'd like to see us change it to opt-in versus opt-out.
I'll second that for the, yeah.
I'm not sure if, that wasn't actually a motion. I think we're still in the consensus phase. So I think we're just editing this document in our quasi-work session. If I see enough head nods, and Colleen will make the change, otherwise we'll have to go to an actual motion, I think, and Dan's going nuts over here, because that's fine. Is it, am I seeing head nods or head shakes? Looks like I'm seeing mostly head nods. I see a thumbs up from Councilor Nordyke. Yeah, looks like everybody's on board with that. So I think with that edit, we might be ready. Oh, Councilor Varney.
Thank you, Mayor Hoy. I can throw a little bit something else into the mix here. I believe the Chariots Board offers a stipend, but it's based on, there's an income threshold. Is that something we might consider, since we do ask an income question in the application process? Maybe modify that to accommodate this? I don't know, I'm just throwing that out there.
I think we can do whatever we want. If that's what the group wants to do, yeah, we can do that. Councilor Phillips.
Thank you for that conversation. I think it is new for us, and I mean, when doing things like need-based applications, we still rely on a third party to do that. So I think it's new, and my goal is to keep this simple. So we've changed it from, you can waive it to opt-in, to kind of encourage people who don't really need it to really think twice about taking it. But I would encourage us to kind of stay as simple as possible. I think that this task force is likely the most important task force that we will have had, in the last 5 to 10 years, if not longer. So I think this is incredibly important work, and I want to reduce as many barriers as possible. So I think that what we've gotten sounds like we have consensus, and I really think it's important. I mean, we've got to, really emphasize communications with all aspects of our community.
Thank you, Councilor. What I heard you say is you want to keep it opt-in and don't make any sort of means test. Just people either opt in or they don't. Thank you. Does that work for everybody? I think we are ready to vote unless somebody tells me otherwise. We need a motion. Yep.
I'm prepared to make the motion, the staff recommendation as outlined and updated by Colleen. Also acknowledging our recent conversation on the stipend, changing it from a waiver to an opt-in.
I'll second that.
Motion by Phillips, second by Nishioka. Councilor, to your motion.
As I just said, I think this is a really important task force. I think it's going to give us a really good opportunity to re-engage with our community with credibility, to find the solutions that we'll need to close the $19 million current budget deficit that we have per year, expected by our budget finance staff members. So I think this is really important. I encourage everybody to apply, and I intend to support this motion.
Thank you, Councilor. Is there further discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Councillor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councillor Varney.
Aye.
Councillor Stapleton absent. Councillor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councillor Phillips.
Aye.
Councillor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councillor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councillor Hoy.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Now we are on to 5B, which is the transfer of appropriations for this task force. Councilor Phillips.
I move staff recommendation to adopt resolution number 2023-41, authorizing a transfer of $302,800 in appropriations within the city's fiscal year 2024 budget for unanticipated charges.
Changes.
Correct, yes. Changes, not charges. Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Phillips, second by Varney. Councilor, to your motion.
I think we covered it. This is just the dollar amount for this important task force, task force. So this just codifies the amount and accounts for it in our budgeting process.
Thank you, Councilor. I would just also note that this is the maximum amount allowable unless there's a change by council, and that even though we just likely reduce the amount of stipend usage, that money will be rolled over into the budget. It won't be spent on something else. It can only be spent on stipends. So any that we don't spend will come back to the general fund.
Thank you. That's an excellent clarification. And the way I look at this is an investment. I mean, I think this is a very important conversation for our community, and not doing this is not investing in this really hurts us moving forward. So I think this is a wise strategic investment.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Councillor Varney.
Aye.
Councillor Stapleton absent. Councillor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councillor Phillips.
Aye.
Councillor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councillor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councillor Hoy.
Aye.
Councillor Nordyke.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. All right. Good work, everybody. That was an interesting process. And now we actually do get to talk about art. So this is exciting, item 5C, and I think we have staff coming up, Keith Bondog-Wynn, and I think he will make a further introduction from there.
Good evening, Mayor Hoy, esteemed city councilors, and fellow residents of Salem. I stand before you as Keith Bondog-Wynn, the Public Works Liaison to the Salem Public Art Commission, a role that has been both rewarding and insightful over the past 2 years. Tonight, I am pleased to introduce Mr. Zachary Hull, the chair of the Salem Public Art Commission. Zachary has been instrumental in our efforts to enhance the cultural fabric of Salem through the integration of public art into our shared spaces. His dedication and leadership have played a crucial role in shaping the artistic landscape of our city. Without further delay, I invite Zachary Hull to share with you the Commission's annual report and provide insights into the promising future of public art in Salem. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Zachary Hull.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Hull.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that very nice introduction. Thank you, Mayor, Council. My name is Zach Hull, and I am the chair of the Salem Public Art Commission. I've heard I'm a low talker, so if you can't hear me, I'll lean in. The Salem Public Art Commission is the reflection of Council's desire to recognize that visual arts contribute to and provide experiences that enrich and better the social and physical environment of the community, and desires to foster an advancement of the visual arts within the city. And as you can see on the slide, that desire is codified in Salem Revised Code 15.001, which established Salem Public Art Commission in 2010. The Salem Public Art Commission consists of 7 volunteer commissioners. There are 2 current vacancies for those of you listening at home or here tonight who think you might wish to serve on the Salem Public Art Commission. The Salem Public Art Commission has 3 main responsibilities: acquiring public art for city facilities, which includes 1/2% of total project costs of public improvement projects for public art; stewarding the city's public art collection, including maintenance, conservation, and public education; and managing the public art fund. The city's public art collection includes nearly 100 pieces, valued during a 2016 and 17 appraisal at nearly $1.4 million, and includes artworks both indoor and outdoor. 2023 was an active year for the collection, notably seeing the addition of several new artworks as a result of the opening of the Public Works Operation Building. Shown here in this slide is the meticulously designed custom wallpaper for the customer lobby by Ashland artist Claire Burbridge, who also contributed to original drawings near the main conference room, inspired by her visits to Bush Pasture Park. We'll see those in a moment. Also at the new Public Works building, Walla Walla sculptor Brad Rude created this captivating and whimsical bronze sculpture featuring a beaver atop a ram at the building's entrance, extending a warm welcome to visitors and employees. And here are the other 2 artworks by Claire Burbridge. I want to acknowledge Salem Public Art Commissioners Michael Hernandez and Paula Booth, who played crucial roles in the artist selection and design process, collaborating with Mark Bechtel and Hacker Architects, and marking a significant milestone in Salem's commitment to integrating artwork into public infrastructure. Beyond its utilitarian purpose, the new Public Works Operations Building stands as a testament to Salem's dedication to nurturing creativity and enhancing the city's visual landscape through meaningful and accessible public art. If you haven't had a chance, I recommend taking a trip to see the new Public Works building and the engaging public art it contains. On to murals. This is also an active year for murals. As stated in the Salem Public Art Commission guidelines, policies and procedures. The purpose of the public mural program is to enhance the aesthetics of the city, provide avenues for original artistic expression, provide public edification through access to original works of public art, encourage community participation in the creation of original works of art, and reduce the incidence of graffiti and other crime while increasing community identity and fostering a sense of place. What you see here is a mural that was initiated by Dave's Hot Chicken in June of this year. The Salem Public Art Commission retroactively addressed this mural project, and after quite a bit of public comment and evaluation with overwhelming public support, the commission officially granted approval of the mural, highlighting the sometimes spontaneous nature of mural installation and underscoring the importance of aligning community creativity with the city's formal approval process. The commission's endorsement reflects its ongoing commitment to balancing artistic expression with regulatory considerations and contributing to the dynamic and visually engaging urban environment that continues to emerge in Salem. A little bit earlier, going back a month to May, and in that same spirit of flexibility and problem solving, the Salem Public Art Commission unanimously supported Councilor Nishioka's proposal to amend the Salem Revised Code to broaden available artistic canvases by including curvilinear surfaces like silos and water towers. You can see to the left of that image the white blank silos, which are soon not to be white and blank, but covered in murals. This change is emblematic of Council's and the Commission's dedication and collective commitment to expanding the scope of public murals and underscores the Commission's commitment to fostering a diverse tapestry of public art and promoting innovation and inclusivity in greater expressions throughout Salem. The Salem Public Art Commission has also been involved in helping secure additional display spaces for public art. Starting in January of 2022, the Oregon Artists Series Foundation, known as OASF, which is a nonprofit organization that works with local partners to secure artwork from Northwest artists for display at the Convention Center and in downtown. OASF agreed to help the Salem Library Foundation secure rotating shows of community art in the Library Art Hall exhibition space. The Art Hall space has been generously provided by the Salem Public Library in collaboration with the Salem Public Library Foundation, the Salem Public Art Commission, and the Oregon Artists Series Foundation to present rotating art exhibitions to the general public throughout the year for free of charge. This new space is dedicated to exploring artwork created by Salem artists and is located inside the main entrance to the library. If you haven't had a chance to visit it, below is a list of the exhibitions, which I don't think you can see on your slide, that took place in 2023 and carrying into 2024. Currently, the Gary Westford exhibition, which opened in September, runs through January 22nd of 2024. Moving on to maintenance, the Good Sense sculpture by artists Lillian Pitt and Mikkel and Sarah Hildy. This celebrates the bottle bill. It underwent meticulous cleaning in collaboration with Public Works, stormwater crews, and notably the City of Salem Facilities Department helped us out this year by moving the sign, which was positioned in such a way that it obscured the bottle shape that you can see clearly now between the legs of the sculpture, and before you couldn't quite see it because there was a sign blocking its view. So thank you to the facilities folks for that help. Another piece that we are continuing to work on is The Drummer and Rooster by artist Robert Hess, former art history professor or art professor at Willamette. Following unanimous approval during the August of 2022 SPAC meeting, the repair for this piece has continued to progress, and commissioners, recognizing its significance, instructed engineering staff to work with skilled artisan Lee Immonen, himself a sculptor and professor and a former student of the artist Robert Hess. The repair is currently underway at Lee Immonen's studio in Eugene with a contract budget not to exceed $9,000. For those of you who have walked around the riverfront recently, You, I'm sure, have seen the Eco Earth Globe at Riverfront Park. In 2020, the Architectural Resources Group was hired as a conservator and conducted a condition assessment of this piece and offered a detailed restoration estimate of $400,000, including approximately $320,000 for construction and $80,000 for design, permitting, project management. On July 25th of 2022, the Eco Ball received official recognition as a local historic resource adopted by the Salem City Council, so perhaps you're familiar with this, highlighting its profound human and cultural significance. The Globe stands as one of Salem's pioneering community projects, creatively transforming an industrial structure linked to the Oregon pulp and paper mill and Boise Cascade into a symbol of world peace and cultural diversity. In the fiscal year 2022-3 budget, Council again demonstrated its commitment by allocating an additional $112,000 from the transient occupancy tax for the Eco Earth Globe rehabilitation. The project has been garnered quite a bit of support from the community as well, with particular thanks to the Salem Parks Foundation Resilient Fundraising Campaign, raising $35,000 from individual donations, as well as $70,000 from the foundation itself, showcasing broad community involvement. Looking ahead to 2024 and beyond, to help establish continuity and vision, in 2023, SPAC is the acronym for the Salem Public Art Commission, began work to draft a strategic plan outlining a strategy to enhance community access to and engagement with public art. This is the first step toward the hopeful eventual development of a public art plan, which Salem is well positioned to create given the nexus of state, educational, nonprofit, and citizen stakeholder groups in the city. Toward this end, SPAC engaged in 4 initiatives this year, including simplifying the mural application process, exploring impediment revisions, and compiling lists of artists and potential mural sites to diversify and expand the representation of public art throughout the city, advising on fund distribution within neighborhoods, launching a utility box art program, and identifying underrepresented areas for future art, engaging in outreach initiatives, including maintaining an active online presence through social media, planning public art tours, creating presentations for neighborhood association chairs, and emphasizing monthly visits to neighborhood associations and art groups. And 4, exploring funding sources and strategic recommendations to fortify Salem's commitment to a vibrant and accessible public art scene. Looking ahead to 2024, the Commission's agenda encompasses further refining the mural application process, commissioning a SPAC-funded public mural, and fostering increased collaboration with other local art stakeholders through public art walking tours and social media takeovers. It's also worth noting that the Salem Municipal Airport, its recent renovation yielded approximately $5,300 in funds dedicated to artwork. Following the official closeout of the project manager will facilitate the transfer of those funds to the Salem Public Art Fund, and this financial support will play a pivotal role in acquiring compelling artwork for the airport, enhancing its aesthetic appeal, and contributing to the cultural vibrancy of the community it serves. Finally, I'd like to thank Council for the opportunity to speak this evening, and the city staff, and in particular, Keith, for his support this last year. Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Mr. Holt, for your presentation. That was really, really wonderful, and it's really good to look at all of the things that have been going on. I'm so excited about the Dave's Hot Chicken building out in my area of town. It's such a, it's so different than your typical just fast food restaurant. It really provides art and something that we don't have a lot of out in East Salem. So it's, you know, I'm really excited to have that. So I'm glad that worked out. Are there questions, Councilor Gonzalez?
Thank you, Mayor. You know, the appraisal in 2016-17, do you know, was that appraisal just for insurance purposes or like market value? Like, what was the purpose of that appraisal?
I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at that.
Okay. You know, because the reason I ask is, you know, one thing is market value. We're investing, we're spending money on something that's financeable, you know, just valuable. If it's mostly to cover insurance, then I would recommend that as we search for future pieces of art, we look for local artists. We really go down to the high schools. You know, there's a lot of local people that we'd benefit, from a high schooler seeing his mural at the airport and being shown, and it would show an investment in this community. So if we're just developing artwork to show the art of art, and it's not for monetary reasons, I'd say let's focus on local youth as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that comment. Yeah.
Additional comments or questions? Thank you, Mr. Hull. We really appreciate your presentation.
Thank you very much.
All right. Now we are on to Civic Center Improvement Project, and we have Alan Dannon and company.
Good evening, Mayor Hoy and Council. I always roll with friends. I'm here tonight to kick things off while we get the presentation up and running. Our objective tonight really is to share with you the results of some planning work that we've been doing for the Civic Center project that's included in the 2022 Safety and Livability Bond, and to set the stage for a public hearing that will be coming back to you with in January with a request to approve a design-build contracting method for the project. First, just a reminder that the bond included $39.5 million for improvements at the Civic Center, and that covers basically seismic retrofit for the Civic Center building itself, the council chambers, the atrium roof that covers the open area outside the Civic Center, and the parking structure, along with other structural improvements that'll go along with that. It also included replacement of the roof for the Civic Center, replacement of all the windows, and new emergency backup power generation. And then finally, an amount for revitalization of Peace Plaza. So that's what was in the bond that was approved by the voters. But even before that, we knew that we had a need for some planning work around the structure, and that was necessitated by a few things: the police moving out to the new police station, the sort of evolving in our thinking of how to better serve our in-person customers that come here to the facility, and the changes that we've made in how we work as a reaction to COVID and the technological improvements that sort of came out of that. So we had put together a request for proposal to give us some help with a big picture vision or plan for the building, and selected CB2 architects to help us with that. And about that time, the bond effort got rolling, and we thought it best to press pause on that effort to see if the bond passed, because even though it's a big picture plan, the context of it would be different if we had a project right on the horizon that would be a big reset for the facility, or maybe that's further out and we make smaller improvements going forward. So when the bond passed, thank you to everyone who voted for it, we found ourselves in the same position as we did with the library renovation, where we had a list of bond-funded improvements that we have to do because that's part of the bond, and then a longer list of things that would be great to do while we're at it, but technically have no money for. So that's where this plan helps us put together a blueprint that says, here's how we can take advantages of the construction. We're gonna be tearing apart large segments of this building. We wanna put them back together in a smart way. And then also make sure that we set the stage for future improvements that we can afford now, so that we don't create barriers for that future work when funds become available. So with that, I want to turn it over to our team. Kirk Sun from CB2 Architects will kind of go through the report for you all. And then Aaron Kimsey, our project manager, will talk about the schedule. And then we're all available to answer questions after that.
All right.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Mayor, councilors, allowing us to give you an update. As Alan said, my name is Kirk Sund. I'm with CB2 Architects, across the street, 500 Liberty Street, Southeast. We've been working on this report for the past about 6 months, and wanted to give you guys kind of a little brief overview of what we've been investigating. So the first part here, as many of you are aware, the council, or the City Hall building and Civic Center, was put onto the National Historic Registry. So for us, that was really the place to start. So as we kind of started digging into the old historical documentation, we found different elements that enlightened us and kind of showed us a path of, as we're trying to build this building back and add the resiliency to it for the future, kind of looking back to the history of what this building was and the original intent. So some of the elements that we found out of that was the outdoor spaces having the opportunity for civil discourse was out of the kind of original design. So it has outdoor spaces both in the atrium, but also in Peace Plaza, and then also towards the north to the Mirror Pond area. The campus orientation was kind of a big part of this analysis too, and how the different elements worked from the library, which was rehabilitated a couple years ago now, but to Peace Plaza, its orientation to the City Hall building itself, the common gathering space, or the atrium as we call it in the middle, council chambers where we sit today, and then as it kind of reflects and looks towards downtown Salem. Some of the other elements was the architectural expression, whether you like it or not. The brutalist architecture was intentional at the time. It gave that kind of raw, honest expression of architecture. So you saw how the building was being held up by showing the massive concrete. And then the other is just kind of maintaining that as you look at that and what was done at the library. And they did a great job in kind of maintaining what that architecture was there. As you look to this building and how it can react to it also was an element that we wanted to get in there. So there are a couple challenges, as we like to call them, with this building. So one of them being, and the most obvious, the seismically vulnerable. So this was the real driver for the bond, but also was one of the main elements to the kind of safety and security of the building. Second being unwelcoming public areas. So the spaces that are open to the public to gather in aren't the most friendly spaces. As you could see in some of the pictures before, there are a lot of people out there in some of those public spaces, and now it's very seldom that you see people gathering. The third element being poor wayfinding. So as many of you are aware, and probably most people that came here tonight, if you've never been here before, it is confusing how to get up here from where you park, and so that is an element or a challenge to this project. The other is the interior challenges and operational efficiency. So this building being 50 years old, the city has done a great job kind of doing what they can with the MacGyver type, well, we can fix this piece and add this, but we've gotten everything out of this building. There was other mechanical improvements, and there have been lighting improvements over time, but it's kind of met its end as far as what you can kind of piece together without some major moves to that. The other is most of the spaces throughout the building have been kind of compartmentalized over time as different departments take over different parts of the building and their function. And so as we walked the buildings, found that there were many opportunities to become more efficient. And then number 6 is a very kind of dovetails with number 5, but underutilized workspaces just because of how they got kind of partitioned up over time. So we kind of set out with the group a kind of goals for the project. So obviously number 1, again, going back to the seismic, resilient, safe, and sustainable for the building is kind of the main goal. The second goal is creating that inviting, accessible space for the public where people know where they're going. When they come in, it's very friendly. And then the third being the 21st century workplace. So as Alan kind of mentioned, when you start tearing things apart to put in giant new concrete walls for seismic stability, well, to put the same thing back in its place is not smart. And so that's where we're looking at the opportunity. Well, we're tearing this whole space open. Let's put in what a 21st century workplace would have. And so that was kind of the third goal there. This is going to be very hard to read, so don't worry about it. It's a snippet from the report, but The idea of what this shows is how we've been going through the analysis with our structural engineer on the team. And so the first thing to kind of point out is the level of seismic stability that we are looking to attain with this project would be an S2, which is just above life safety standard. And life safety standard is it's safe enough for everybody to exit the building during a seismic event. The recently completed Public Works facility is the highest level to where it can operate during and after an event without repair. Because of this design and the heavy concrete structural part of this building, it would make it cost prohibitive to try to get to that same level that a newer building built from ground up would be able to attain. The main shear in the building is concrete, which you probably could have guessed, which holds the building in place as the earth moves. One of the elements that we were surprised to see is actually the council chambers area. We would only need to add some additional concrete to the columns that hold it up. The other element to it at the council chambers, the connection to the walkways that you come in, those we would need to isolate, which really means we just need to cut the concrete and then put a little cover over it so you don't trip on it. But right now they're connected and wouldn't perform well in a seismic event. The final element is the atrium space. So part of what we were looking at with this is how could you fix it and keep it? There's always the opportunity as this goes to the next project that it could be removed, but we felt it was prudent to look at it of how do you keep it and how do you reinforce it so that it could stay and the space inside could perform as originally designed. So all you can basically see probably is the red X's almost that make a little pattern on there. So the idea with this is the most efficient way to reinforce that is to add a horizontal steel structure that would be able to hold up the weight of the concrete and keep it stable in a seismic event. So we have about 6 items for recommended site improvements. So we've kind of consolidated 3 of the ideas into this, but these kind of go back to the original, the challenges and the goals. And so these are elements that we feel that will help meet the goals of what the project is. So one of them, open views of the building. So that's looking at the opportunity from the drive-by that people know what this building is. They have the opportunity to see it. There are elements, whether it be on the Liberty side, that there's some berming that creates this visual barrier from Liberty Street to be able to see the building and how to even get into it. Looking at the opportunity on Commercial Street and on Liberty, there's a little bit of parking on Liberty, but I think the idea is creating a space that someone coming in to have a 20-minute meeting or an hour meeting, they have parking that they know where it is, they can go to it, but it's intended to be short-term parking. So not like what the parking structure has here, where this would be, if you've been here before, you know where you're going, you know where to park down below. The other element being obviously the multimodal parking part of it, where we can enhance the bike parking in and around the main entries to the building so that as people come and visit the building, they have the opportunity to have a nice place to park their bike as they come in. Item 4, reducing entry points. So there's, not everybody probably knows it, but on the southwest part, there is doors that enter in to the building where when you come in there, you're not really sure where to go. So one of the elements to this too is closing off that part of the building, forcing the pedestrian traffic to really go along kind of this access here that aligns with the library. And actually, I wonder if I can point on here, right here. So this blue line and the blue access point here, running along the east side of the council chamber and running all the way down to Mirror Pond, and then connecting to the other pedestrian pathway there. So really reinforcing that access point, which accomplishes several things, but one of the main ones basically being the wayfinding. So that also runs adjacent to the newly built out customer service center. So as you direct people with signage, that path has somewhere to go, and you know where you're going because we can sign it appropriately. Last item there, activating outdoor space. So kind of going back to that original idea of how and why the building was created, is creating spaces that can be gathered in the outdoor, both where there's no overhead cover, opportunity where there is cover if the weather is crummy, but then also having that view towards downtown on the north side of the parking. So part of the analysis that we've been doing is going through all the departments and looking at what they have as far as space, interviewing the staff there to figure out where they see growth or not, and then how they operate as far as are they more meetings at desks, are they meetings in conference rooms, and so this is just a real quick diagram that kind of shows how we've compiled all of that and figuring out which elements would go on which floors. So the big gist of it is everything fits as the police left, and bringing the departments that are not in City Hall currently, bringing them back in. And there also is, I think 6,000 square feet on the third floor, 3,000 on the second floor, and about 3,000 square feet on the first floor of vacant space. So that vacant space essentially is non-allocated department space right now that is there for growth. So this last one, as we looked at how to prioritize community interaction, is setting the ground floor being more of the public space. So as people come and get to the main floor of the building, they have the customer service center, but then moving other departments that have that daily customer interaction to the first floor. The second floor becomes kind of the hybrid of a space where part of the building on the Liberty Street side would be more of a public facing departments. Obviously council chambers has that, but then looking at the west side as being kind of, we'll call it semi-public. So they're departments that kind of have some interaction, but not as much as what you'd have on the ground floor. And then third floor being the departments that have very little public interaction. So one of the elements that we, as a goal of that 21st century workplace that we wanted to look to integrate, or at least analyze the opportunity, is creating vertical connections through the floors. So the kind of orange squares on the floor plan show where we've analyzed and looked at the structural system such that we could cut openings in the floor to provide vertical circulation. So you can have that interacting space between departments, and then also give the opportunity to move throughout the building while staying indoor too. Since it's a little uncommon in an office building context to have outdoor hallways. But this building does. So looking for the opportunity to make some of those indoor. And then looking to address the security concerns at council chambers, where you have a second means of egress out of the space other than all going to the south. So looking at kind of the north side, providing another set of stairs or exit there is another element to what we looked at. I think with that, go to the timeline with Aaron.
Thank you, Kirk. Hi, I'm Aaron. Good evening. So I just wanted to touch base on our next steps and kind of where we go from here. Obviously, we're here tonight to talk about the pre-design that's being developed, and we'll have a final report to us in January. And then I'm going to be back actually here at council on the 8th of January to seek approval for an alternative delivery method to design this project. And so assuming we are granted that approval, I will put together a request for proposals from Progressive Design Build contractors. And we will review those and select a contractor that we want to use for the project. And we feel like if we're able to get the approval process and the RFP out, we'll be able to begin design by May 2024. And then the process will really start. We'll be able to really dig deep into into CB2's report, further analyze how we want to construct the building to try to figure out what elements we can add to the project. And with that, we'll be able to start construction in June 2025. It's a pretty aggressive schedule, but we feel like we would be able to do that. And if that's the case, assuming all things go well, we would be moving back into the building by October 2026. So with that, we kind of open up to questions.
All right. Do we have questions for staff? Councilor Phillips.
It's a little bit early, probably. I mean, this is just the design phase, but when we start actually doing construction in our future, where will we have our city council meetings? Like, how will the day-to-day be impacted?
That's an excellent question, and I don't have a firm answer for you right now. We know from experience that trying to keep folks in the building while also being in construction is going to be extremely difficult. So one of the first things that we look at with our design build team is to figure out, to get a better sense of the schedule, and then two, to figure out what we can do with relocating staff during construction, and also which includes courts, and then obviously these council meetings are obviously very important. So it's to be determined and where we'll end up.
Additional questions? Councilor Nishioka.
Thank you, Mayor Hoy. Not so much a question as I just want to compliment this committee, all the people working on this, CBD2, all the staff members. This has been amazing, and I want to give a particular shout out to Courtney Knox-Bush, because she has been instrumental in getting everybody organized, tied together, getting all the information that needs to get from the department. The department's head had to work on getting numbers for their staffing, what their needs were. It's been amazing what they have done in really quite a short period of time. So I just want to say congratulations to everybody that's been working on this, and I am so honored that I've been a participant in this committee, and I feel very honored. It is in my ward, so that's nice, and I'm really excited for this project to go forward.
Thank you, Councilor. Further questions or comments? All right. Well, thank you for the report. We'll look forward to seeing you back in January. And with that, we are on to item 5E, which is you'll find that on your additions sheet. This is the decision on whether to interview applicants to the Budget Committee and the Planning Commission. Councilor Phillips.
Help me on this one. Is a motion needed?
Yes.
Can I say I move staff recommendation?
I don't believe you can do that because there isn't one. Okay. So you have to actually,
I guess then,
choose.
I would,
I think you have two options written for you.
Okay, let me look again.
And you can pick whichever one you think is the best, or you can come up with your own.
Right here. Oh, I'm in the wrong one. I appreciate it, thanks. Okay. I move that City Council conduct interviews for the committee's recommended candidates for the Citizen Budget Committee and Planning Commission on January 8th.
I'll second it.
Motion by Phillips, second by Nishioka. Councilor, to your motion?
Basically, I had the option that we do the interviews or we don't do the interviews, and I chose to do the interviews because that's been our process in past. So I don't feel super strong about this. It has been our standard work to do that, And so I just wanted to make sure that we kind of started from, what has been the standard. But I'm open to considering an alternative way to move forward. And we are going to have a really busy schedule with all the things, coming at us in 2024. So I chose to go with what's currently the situation, and looking forward to what my colleagues have to say.
Thank you, Councilor. Just for some more context for those who haven't been involved in the process, the Boards and Commissions Committee met last week, considered applications for a number of boards and commissions, including these two. Typically in the past, I think our rules are somewhere it says that we generally conduct interviews for these positions, and we have done that in the past, although we have also not done it in the past. It's council's pleasure. We do have a number of openings on Planning Commission and a number on budget. It's likely that if we decide that we want to interview candidates, we will have to schedule a special meeting for January. I don't believe there will be enough time to do it prior to a regular meeting. That's when we typically would do it, because normally there's only a couple of candidates. But in this case, with the number of vacancies, we have people's terms expiring. We had a person who sadly passed away. And so we have a number of vacancies that will require a lot of interviews should we decide to do that. Or the council could defer to the judgment of the boards and commissions committee process and just move forward that way. So it's up to you. First, I'm going to go to the city attorney, then I'm going to go to Councilor Quinn.
Sorry. Just one quick clarification that the council rule that talks about the appointment process says typically you do not interview reappointments. So for the Planning Commission, that would be Planning Commissioner Heller and Slater. So there's 3 other appointments that would be subject to interviews.
Thank you. Councilor Quinn.
My only comment would be, if we're going to do interviews, then I think we should interview all of the applicants, aside from the reappointments, because more than these folks applied, like for Budget Committee and Planning Commission. There were more applicants than this.
Right.
I actually am comfortable with these appointments, and I would just as soon move forward with the boards and commissions, if I don't know the name of the committee, but the committee recommendations as stated here, if that made sense.
It does. Thank you, Councilor. And just for context for everyone else, Councilor Gwynn sat in on our committee meeting and as an observer last week, so she had a kind of a first-hand look on the process. Further discussion? Councilor Phillips.
I don't want to do an extra meeting. So I would be open to a friendly substitute motion, or I'd be prepared to make a substitute motion, but I didn't want to cut off my colleague who also raised their hand about the same time I did.
Thank you. Councilor Hoy.
Thank you, Councilor Phillips and Mr. Mayor. I know that there's a lot of interest in budget at this moment. Could you just offer some context to how this works and how the budget, how the committees, what's it called, Deanna? The committee.
Boards and Commissions Appointment Committee.
Thank you very much. Comes up with these names.
Sure.
Where do they come from? How does it happen? And what's the context?
Sure, I can provide that, just having been a member of that for the last 5 or 6 years. So all of our boards and commissions vacancies are on our website. They're all listed. We accept applications on an ongoing basis. And then when we have vacancies, and typically December and June are the busy months for appointments because that's when terms typically expire. And so this month was a particularly large group because we have people whose terms expire at the end of the year. And so they fill out an online application. We get those to the Boards and Commissions Committee. We review those. We have conversation about who we want to recommend for appointments. And sometimes it's a robust conversation, and sometimes it's a matter of, well, who fits this particular vacancy? Because some of our boards and commissions, frankly, are very prescriptive on the membership. Like Planning Commission can be no more than 2 people involved in real estate or banking. I mean, there's a lot of funky rules, and actually that's why we're getting ready to review the whole process, because as a member of this, it was one of my initiatives when I came into office as mayor, is that we really need to take a new, fresh look at this process, because it's really some old rules that have been in place for a long, long time. And I think it's a good idea to just take a fresh look because they're so prescriptive. We'll have to have, for instance, somebody involved in the architecture, landscape, or other design kind of work. And we may not have applicants in that category, so we won't consider anybody. Or we'll have people apply for something that they don't qualify for, so we can't really consider their application. So sometimes it's a matter of trying to find, okay, who will fit that spot and who will fit that spot of the people who applied. And any other member of the committee is welcome to weigh in on and add to that if they want. I think Councilor Nordyke, Councilor Stapleton, and Councilor Nishioka is our alternate, if I recall correctly, or am I not remembering right? You're a full member. I can't remember, sorry. That's the committee. Yeah.
Just as a follow-up
Yeah.
then, because I can feel the questions coming, will there be opportunity for the public to have input on any discussions the budget committee might be having or not, or?
There's always public comment period at every budget committee meeting.
Okay.
I'm looking to staff to make sure that I'm not speaking out of turn. So even for the January meeting, right, there's still public comment?
Yeah, Josh Eggleston, Chief Financial Officer, that's been our practice.
Yeah. So no matter what our budget process, it's prescribed by law about that process, and it's a public meeting which would include public comment. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Councilor Nishioka.
Thank you. So I'll add to the application process. As Mayor Hoy was saying, it's online, people go online, and there might be several committees that have available spots or boards and commissions that have available spots. And so we will have applicants that will just check every one. And so there'll be someone who's applying for the library, historic landmarks, for the planning, for budget, and it's like we have to figure out what that person, that direction that they fit the best in, and then Center 50 Plus requires that a certain number of people be 50 and over, which is a good recommendation, but there's no place on the application that gives us their age. So sometimes we'll have to have somebody from staff call and try to obtain that information so that we can make appropriate appointments.
And some of our boards and commissions only allow you to be on one, like these two,
Yes.
I think. If you're a member of the Planning Commission or the Budget Committee, you're not eligible to be on any other committee. So it's a lot of figuring out the rules, and that's mostly what the meeting's about.
A lot of pre-work, reviewing all of them and seeing where, we all think that they should fit.
Thank you for the context.
You bet. Further discussion. Councilor Varney.
Thank you, Mayor Hoy. I'm just kind of curious, if we were going to interview all the applicants, how many would that be?
I don't recall the exact number. It's probably in the neighborhood of 10, I would say, on both committees. Probably 10, or maybe a few more. It would be a couple of hours minimum.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Councilor Phillips.
I'd like to move a substitute motion. My substitute motion is I move that the City Council not conduct interviews for the committee's recommended candidates for the Citizen Budget Committee and the Planning Commission, and appoint the candidates recommended by the Appointments and Committee for Planning Commission and Citizen Budget Committee.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Gwen. And I see that Councilor Nordyke has her hand up. I'm going to give Councilor Phillips a chance to speak to his motion, then we'll go to Councilor Nordyke.
First, I want to acknowledge that when I said what the standard was, I agree with City Attorney. It was just for new applicants. I do think that we already have, by my way of tracking, 4 meetings coming up in January between our 2 monthly City Council meetings, work session, and a Budget Committee meeting. Probably more than that. So, an extra 2 hours of interviewing, I don't look forward to that. I think that we have, a lot of work done by our subcommittees. So I trust the work of the boards, the appointment board subcommittee, and I'm prepared to go with what their recommendations are.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you. I support not conducting another meeting because I'm on the boards and committees and I am confident in my decision. but also I'm not hearing a cry from my colleagues. I'm not hearing a really strong desire to interview all those folks. If they really wanted to, I would support them in that, but I'm not getting that. So I'm supportive of this substitute motion. The other comment that I want to make has to do with the application questions. The mayor has mentioned a desire to overhaul a lot of the bylaws and such for these committees, which I'm supportive of, and we've had numerous conversations about that in committee meetings. I would also add that going back to the task force revenue task force application, I would love to see those questions added to our standard issue application, because we've received next to no information about people who apply. And this information that is sought in the revenue task force application would be extremely helpful for me in deciding where they should go for other boards and committees. Things like whether they own a business, whether they live in a shelter, whether they work for a small company, a nonprofit, and so on, whether they make a living wage, age ranges, to Councilor Nishioka's point, and so on. There are other items in this list that would be very helpful to me, and because they're just check the box forms, I don't think it would become an onerous addition to our existing application to ask these people to do these additional 8 questions or so. So I would really like to explore that and see our boards and committees application really take into account these other types of experiences so that we can make even more informed decisions on who is going to be serving in a leadership capacity within the city.
Thank you, Councilor. I anticipate that the Boards and Commissions Committee, as well as all the rest of the members of the council, will have the opportunity to weigh in on that process as we start to get into that work, as our consultant starts to develop the process to really do that full review. So definitely keep those comments fresh, and we can look at that when we get to that part of the process. So thank you for that. Is there further discussion? So just as a reminder, the motion on the table is to not conduct interviews and appoint the candidates as recommended by the committee. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Councillor Stapleton absent. Councillor Nishioka?
Aye.
Councillor Phillips?
Aye.
Councillor Gwynn?
Aye.
Councillor Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councillor Hoy?
Aye.
Councillor Nordijk?
Aye.
Councillor Varney?
Aye.
Mayor Hoy?
Aye, motion passes. All right, we are on to information reports. I'm just going to go through those as we have been doing. Is there anything on item 6A? 6B? 6C? 6D? Councilor Nordijk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we already heard Councillor Hoy give an excellent summary of the concerns from the community about the reduction in hours. And I want to make sure that I confirm my understanding of what's happened with this. From what I'm reading from the staff report and from the email that I had from the city manager this morning, the city chose not to fill vacancies in the library starting months ago. And they refused to fill about 6 positions. And as with any situation, when you have more vacancies, you have more people working longer hours to get the same amount of things done. And that's put pressure on the existing staff. And so now that we have staff burnout from the remaining library staff, reduced hours are perhaps the only way to retain the staff that we still have. I noticed that the staff report says that sick leave use is up 65%, and that's deeply concerning to me. I don't believe that asking the library tonight to resume or to have full hours with that reduced staff is sustainable, because that will burn out people. And I don't believe in making people burn the candle at both ends. And as I also understand it, the city also consulted with its union on how best to handle this situation. But what I'm more concerned about is the fact that the real decision that put us in this position today happened months ago when city management decided not to fill those positions. And so now we're in a situation where it's untenable to ask the staff to work the same amount of hours, and council can't do anything about that at this moment. What I also find concerning is that this is coming to us now as an information report and not an action item. We're not being consulted on a commodity, a service, a resource to the community. And you can tell from the testimony, it is a highly valued asset to our community. And I get the impression that the city management has done this because their impression from council is that the library is at the bottom of our budgetary priority list. And that's not the case for me, and hasn't been the case. And I've stated that publicly, I've stated at council meetings. It is not at the bottom of my priority list. So I don't agree with a list of budgetary priorities that means that our library is the first to suffer, especially given the fact that there are other departments that have other vacancies that have been around for months and months and months and months, 8 months or longer. So I don't understand why we got to this point, because ultimately I worry that the city management will continue to make unilateral decisions about where to cut. And we're not being consulted on that. This is not an action item in front of us. It's a done deal. It's an information report, not a request not with a staff recommendation. It's a done deal. And it's going to have major consequences for our community. And I would just invite the city manager to make sure that it's not enough to tell us hypothetically cuts will happen. We all know that cuts are going to happen. But this still feels very abrupt, even with all the prior conversations we've had. And I know that a lot of community residents will be impacted by this. So I know that as we move forward, we're going to have to make some more difficult decisions until and unless we find new revenue streams. We all know that's a thing. We all know that that is our reality, but it is a shared reality. And we have a budget committee for a reason, to guide us on where these priorities are. And by making this decision after and outside the time that budget committee meets, that means that the public members of budget committee couldn't weigh in on whether to reduce these hours, and neither did we. So while I'm fully aware that we have discussed that the library would be impacted by budgetary constraints, this still, with all of that being said, this still feels very abrupt. And there are other vacancies that we could have considered. So I just hope that moving forward, there are other ways that we can go about deciding and making difficult decisions as a team, and not just as an information report at the end of a meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. I think the city manager would like to comment.
Yes, thank you, Councilor, and thank you, Mayor, for giving me the opportunity to respond, or at least to provide some additional information in regards to this decision. As you look back on the work that we've done around our budget, we've started talking about impacts to the library going all the way back to August. On September 18th, we talked about the 6 vacant positions and the potential for those not being filled. So we have had these conversations. I understand this feels very abrupt, but the impact and the breaking point to staff is also very abrupt. We started with 6 vacant positions when we started these conversations in September, and now we have 9 vacant positions. At some point, we can no longer consider, or we can no longer continue to provide the levels of service with the hours of operation without literally breaking people's backs. Scott and Bridget came to me and said, we're at that point. And I said, okay, let's put an information report on for city councils review and consideration here, to get your feedback in regards to this, but literally we are at a breaking point with staff continuing. I'm not going to say it's impossible. I'm going to say it's extraordinarily challenging, and we're asking people to do more than is reasonable. Doing more with less is one thing. Doing more with an unreasonable amount of staffing is another thing. And as we went through our budget process discussions in August and September and again in October, the library was at the forefront. When you look at our priority-based budgeting, the library and Center 50 Plus and Parks and Recreation score lower than services like police and fire. That doesn't necessarily say that they have less value to the community. It just means that they are not where we're going to put our dollars if our dollars are limited. And our dollars going forward this year and next year and future years are going to be limited without additional revenues. In February, we will be back in front of City Council. We will formally recommend these changes to our budget. But again, staff was at a breaking point, and I felt like I had to respond to that. So I accept the criticism. I accept and apologize for perhaps not communicating this as clearly as we should have. Certainly, as I went through this process, I'm understanding one thing and perhaps not communicating that as well as I could have. So I apologize for that.
Thank you, Mr. Staley. I feel like you've been laying the groundwork out for a few months now, and this wasn't a surprise to me. I mean, I've been at the meetings and listening to the conversation, so I wasn't particularly surprised. I would like to hear from the librarian or from our deputy city manager about, maybe in response to some of the comments we heard, or some of the feedback we got regarding the days that were, or the particular hours that were chosen. I would like to know what the thought process was on how you went there. Is Sunday a high use time? Would there be a better day? I would just love to hear thoughts about that.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to ask Bridget Esqueda to give you some information in anticipation of some of these types of questions. We have prepared some information for you. So Bridget, by the way, I don't think has been in front of you maybe ever, or certainly not much. Bridget is our acting in capacity city librarian and has been for a little over 6 months, and I want to acknowledge the excellent work and really genuine leadership that she's provided the library through a pretty difficult transition period. But with that, Bridget can provide you some additional detail on how we arrived at which days and hours we were going to focus our resources on. So.
Thank you, and welcome, Bridget, and thank you for your great work. I hear lots of great feedback from staff and others regarding the work you've been doing, so thank you, and welcome to City Council. If you would hit that button on the, there you go, and turn that green light on and introduce yourself for us. Thanks.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Bridget Esqueda. I am the acting in capacity city librarian for the last 6 months. I prepared for you this presentation with the most current data, and this is the data that I used in order to adjust the hours to what was proposed, which is 10 to 6 Tuesday through Thursday, and then 10 to 5 Friday and Saturday. You each should have a copy in front of you for easier viewing if you'd like, but if you go to the first slide, or the next slide, I should say. This is the data heat map for the library for the past year.
Bridget, just for your information, I don't believe we actually have that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Or do we? I don't have one. Awesome, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I didn't have one.
Okay, now everybody should have a copy.
Thank you so much.
So this first slide is showing you the data heat map for the last year. The redder the box means that the higher the occupancy that we have. So this is now an average. So an average 258, seeing Tuesday at 10 a.m. And you see that on Tuesdays and Wednesdays are one of our busiest days. And as you see at the top, it goes by hour. So day and hour, and this is just for the main library. As you see that Tuesday through Saturday are our most busiest days of the week based on the average traffic that we're seeing on an average day at the library. At the next slide, or the next page.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second and ask you a question on that? Why do you think Tuesday at 10 a.m. is our busiest time?
Because that's the day we open, because we're closed on Mondays, so that's our first day that we're open, and we have story times at that day as well, so we see a lot of families during those times.
Thank you.
Yeah. Our next one is of West Salem specifically. You'll see that Saturday is highly utilized as well as Tuesday. We started opening on Mondays just in May. And you can see that Mondays was pretty popular, and we believe that it was because the main library is closed. But as you can see, Tuesdays and Saturdays are still the top most utilized days at West Salem. Going to the next page. This is our computer usage for year to date. This is for both locations, and you'll see from 12 to 5 is when all the computers are most utilized. And this is from December of last year to today, or yesterday, because it goes by the day after. For the main library on the next page, it shows you same times. That's when the busiest computer usage is for the main library. And if you go to the next page for West Salem particularly, it's pretty much the same times, 12 to 5 is what we're seeing, the most high used for computer usage. After that, we do have the Wi-Fi, which I believe it's the next page. This is our total Wi-Fi usage. The amount that you see for SPL, those 13,358 are unique devices that every person, so each person who logs in, each have an individual MAC ID, and so over 13,000 people accessed our Wi-Fi of January of this year. Just last month, we had over 15,000 that utilized our Wi-Fi, and we couldn't break it down to location because they both use the same like Wi-Fi access points. So our IT is trying to work to kind of make it separate, but that's going to take some time. But currently, this is the total Wi-Fi usage for both locations. On the next slide, we have the total circulation stats. So what this means is that this is how many items are being returned, checked out. At the top, you'll see the day of the week, 1 through 7, starting with Sunday. So 1 equals Sunday. And then on the far right where it says trans start date from 0 to 23, that's the hour. If you can see between 10 a.m. and about 3 p.m., we see the most circulated items throughout the day. And this is from January of this year to yesterday. So between the 10 a.m. to the 2 p.m. are the most highly circulated items. So people are checking in, people are checking out, people are renewing. That's when we're seeing the most activity throughout the day. And it looks like it's going to be on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and also Saturdays are the highest use. On the next page, we have circulations just for West Salem, so you can see how many transactions are done there throughout the week and also the hour for the past year. After that is our reference transactions. So what we count as a reference transaction is somebody signs up for a library card. Somebody asks us what time does the pharmacy close. People just asking any kind of question to a library staff member. And then at the top, you'll see that it's categorized by the location. So we have the first floor desk at Main, the second floor, the front desk at West, teen scene, greeter, roaming, virtual desk. As you see, we staff a lot of areas, and there's a lot of service points that we have to that we have to staff, and a lot of these are 2 to 3 staff members. So as you see, from 10 a.m. down to 5 p.m., we see a lot of transactions at the main floor desk, which we usually have 2 people and then a roamer, because sometimes in the morning we get a lot of transactions. And as you see at West, during the times between noon and about 4 p.m., we see a lot of transactions there. On the next slide, we have our meeting and study room usage stats. The higher the percentage means the more utilized it is. So as you see at the left, it's Monday through Sunday, and at the very top, going by the hour using military time. Our most utilized days are, it looks like Saturdays are pretty high, also Tuesdays, also in the hours between noon and about 3 o'clock. That's when we're seeing the most usage of our meeting spaces, and this is based upon a year of data. Down to the next little, like where it says bookings by day of the week, you can see which days are the most highly utilized and sought out for. Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays are the very, very top. And then you could also see at the very bottom, bookings by hour of the day, which this is when people submit for a study room reservation, which are very, very popular. At the next location, at the next page, you can see, next slide, please. This is West Salem in particular. Not too high use for the meeting space or study room that we have there, but it is still utilized. And this is again based upon the last year of data. On the next page, we have our staff sick time usage stats, which I used to indicate to all of you the increase of sick time. All the changes in red indicate the percentage that increased, and this is when I was doing the analysis, and I did it from October of last year to this year, and that's the comparison that you see. Just last week, all of the managers, which right now there's only 2 of us, have been working the desk, have been covering shifts, and we're pretty tired. This Saturday I'm working because there's just not enough staff to be there. So as Councilman Nordyke said, staff is tired, we're feeling burnt out, and this is why we had to make the changes, is to conserve the most valuable resource we have at the library, which is staff. That's who puts the books out, that's who does the programs, that's who make the library a welcoming and inclusive place, to make it a safe place, to everything that you see out there. There's so many people working in the background to make it what it is. And that is why we had to make the changes, to preserve the staff and also preparing for what lies ahead.
Well, thank you. That was quite an answer to what I thought was a pretty simple question. That was way more detailed than I was prepared for, but thank you. I knew that you based your decision on facts and not anything else, but I had no idea that you had this much data to actually consider. And so, yeah, it's clear to me that you didn't decide to close on Sundays to be punitive, or you weren't thinking of things like, how to get back at the community or something and I mean, you're a librarian, you want to serve the public. I know that's in your heart, and that's your mission, and that those things that have been suggested couldn't be further from the truth.
No librarian wants to be known for cutting hours. We don't want to cut hours. We want to expand hours if we could, but based on just the current situation we're in, this is what we can offer at the moment, but we're hoping to offer more in the future.
Thank you. Are there further questions? Councilor Varney.
Thank you, Mayor Hoy, and thank you, Bridget, for the great presentation. It really helps to have all the facts. One of the questions that I've gotten from some constituents is, why can't we utilize volunteers to fill these gaps?
That's a great question, and one I've been asked before. So volunteers only have, they can only help us with a certain amount of tasks. They can help us shelve, they can help us pull reports sometimes, like looking for things on the shelf. They can help us greet people. That's pretty much it. They can't help us with patron registrations or staffing a desk where the service points are, because they'll have privy to personal information that they're not allowed to. So to preserve the confidentiality of our patrons, we don't allow volunteers to help them with their reference transactions. And that's what the need is to fill all of those service points that you saw on the data spreadsheet.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Councilor Phillips.
Thank you, Bridget, and thank you for the opportunity for asking these questions. I don't know if this is best for Bridget. I'm looking at the last page that was up on our presentation. It says when the report was run, there were 32 staff and 9 vacancies. My question is, as a result of accepting where we are now, where are we at in terms of like total staff and vacancies? Because I've heard that we kind of paused hiring 6. So is the number 32 and 9 vacancies, or is the number a little bit different?
I think Mr. Archer's going to take that one.
Yeah, we have 9 vacancies currently. Mr. Staley was referencing when we started some conversations in August, we had 6, but subsequently that has grown to 9, and that's just through the natural course of people turning over resignations, retirements, et cetera. So we are at 9 right now. There was reference in a comment we heard earlier about filling a supervisory position that we have advertised right now, and that is accurate. We are anticipating a retirement in early January, thank you, and we're trying to hire ahead of that. So we're trying to minimize the damage as best we can. So we're at 9 right now, but this particular supervisor that's retiring supervises the largest single group of people in the library in terms of other staff. So we're going to fill that one, but we're being very selective about filling those positions. Does that answer your question, Councilor?
I mean, I think it's a hard question. It helps. I think it's the beginning point to understand this. So when I see 32 staff and 9 vacancies, does that mean there's basically 21 people doing the work right now?
Currently, there's 31 people doing the work, where it should be 42.
Okay, so you add, thank you. Okay, so 9 plus 32. So we're at 32 going to 31 and we're recruiting. Okay, I understand that. And then I guess my question is, are we really going to actively try and fill all 9 of those vacancies, or is that some of those 9 vacancies, what we discussed back in August and the various months, September, not going to be filled?
Correct.
So is it the 6 or 9 that we're not filling?
We are not moving forward with filling positions at this point in time.
Other than the senior position just mentioned?
Correct.
So like the active people working that we know of is 31, possibly 32, if we successfully recruit one more.
Yes, my understanding is that we have staffed according to the 32 positions.
So the new recommendations are with the workforce that we have?
Correct.
Okay, so if my colleagues don't mind, this is not for the librarian. It's more of a big picture question. Is the library the only general fund, branch or division that paused or delayed hiring in this time period, or are other, aspects of the general fund in the process of pausing hiring as well?
No, as you all understand, we've had ongoing vacancies in the police department. I think the chief told me that they've hired 18 people this year. They currently have 20 vacancies, or is it 22? So let's call it they have 20 vacancies. So if we didn't do any hiring, we would have 38 vacancies. So yes, it's absolutely crucial that we keep moving forward with hiring. The fire department just brought on 12 new firefighters on laterally, but they still have 8 vacancies, and those 8 vacancies are being held until we have our budget conversations and until we know where we're going, because basically that's one fire station. If we need to close a fire station at some point in the future because of lack of revenue, the chief is holding those 8 positions vacant. The 12 positions that we've recently brought on, we don't feel like we would ever have to lay them off, even in a worst case scenario, just from natural attrition and yeah.
So I appreciate that, because I agree with the mayor and a little bit with my colleague. This is kind of difficult to track, and I feel like some of it was my own fault. we tried to do a lot with last year's budget committee in terms of budgeting for the staff we wanted and needed, and also finding a way to get new revenue at the same time. And in hindsight, my opinion is that we probably did too much, but my goal was to try to fix this problem of being down 308 staff across all the general fund, as demonstrated by the audits and Moss Adams, who's looked at where we're at. This is just, I hear the community that's frustrated. I understand wanting more library hours and days. I agree with you, but we will need your help finding ways to raise revenue, because if we don't raise revenue, something else has to be cut, because this is a zero-sum game. I think this year we went into our reserve fund by $10, $11 million. So, we're running out of time to staff at the levels that we were hoping to. Am I even close? Clean up what needs to be cleaned up.
So I can speak to 2023. We used about.
Could you introduce yourself, please, Mr.
Yeah,
Edson?
Josh Eggleston, Chief Financial Officer. Last year, 2023, we used $4.1 million of our reserve funding. We're expecting that to be similar for this year and then to escalate into the future. But that's something we'll really dive into at the next budget committee meeting.
So, and currently, are we in the fiscal budgeted year 2024?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so you're saying it's not 11 million, it's closer to 4 to 5 million.
Yes, and I will say that we're very early in the year to determine how much we're spending or not spending. It really depends on the fire department, the police department, everyone's hiring practices. We meet monthly with every department to try to get as close as we can. The closest we get is in June, right when the year's about to end.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I guess I'm trying to find a way to highlight what I think is happening. What are the consequences of actively, aggressively hiring and maintaining services when we don't have sufficient funds? What happens? What would that look like if we had hired up in every part of the budget, knowing that we had not guaranteed revenue?
We would deplete our reserves, and we would deplete them more quickly.
And then I guess just the real world, what happens when we deplete those reserves? I've heard staff say it decreases our flexibility, but what does that look like when we deplete our reserves and we really run out of money? What does that look like as opposed to what is actually happening?
Well, at that point, layoffs no longer become a strategic endeavor. They become a mandatory. We have to reduce our expenditures by whatever percentages are necessary to comply with our fiscal responsibilities, whether that's complying with our fund balance or just literally keeping our heads above water. We would have to make those necessary adjustments. The plan that we've presented and talked to council provides us with an incremental approach to achieving that fiscal position where we do maintain solvency and we do maintain compliance with fund balance. It also gives us an opportunity to have this conversation that we're proposing without having drastic reductions to our priority services of police and fire. Those cuts have been delayed in our proposed budgets until the 2026 budget year. So we do have basically 1 year to have this discussion about what our needs are, and then if our revenue position doesn't change, then we have a plan for how to maintain budget compliance.
Thank you for that. I agree. I don't, it's going to be hard to communicate this and to continue to engage the community so that they can understand that. I still find this stuff complicated. But I agree that this is triage. We're running out of money, and we have, as a community, not just us as council, but we have very difficult decisions without additional revenue. And we don't, at this time, have additional revenue. So, when I talk about triage, I actually talk about it as an emergency room doctor. I am deeply uncomfortable with the future and current cuts coming across every part, the library, everything. But in triage, we are going to have to look, in my opinion, at things that decrease death and harm. And it's difficult in those situations, like what actually gets recommended in terms of harm reduction. I mean, the prospect of losing fire stations, terrifying. You know, the prospect of, reducing services at the Center for 50 Plus and the harm reduction that they do in terms of keeping the senior citizens engaged and plugging them into the resources they needed, or direct, like being part of distributing food to our community. Like, these are terrible decisions that I previously called a smorgasbord of awful. So I'm not angry at anybody in the community. I mean, I'm deeply frustrated that this is where we're at. We need everybody's help to propose recommendations on, what we choose to prioritize and ways to get additional revenue, in my opinion. Like, I would just beg you guys, whoever's out there that wants, your department funded, help us find a way to come up with like an option levy or some other thing that gets what you want funded, because we don't have the funds right now, in my opinion. I mean, based on everything I've heard at any time I've been serving in the last 3 years. So, thanks for the opportunity to kind of mention that out loud.
Thank you, Councilor. Additional, Councilor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a few questions. One is, why weren't the vacancies filled? I'm not sure who that's for.
The vacancies were not filled because we recognized that in February, we are going to be coming back to City Council and proposing budget reductions that would remove those positions from our budget.
Okay. And to be clear, I'm just asking about the
Sure.
library right now.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
And the library is part of those positions.
Okay. Now, I just want to say thank you for this. Josh Eggleston may remember, I've been asking for this for a long time, like a year. I may put this under my pillow tonight because it's a dream come true. So thank you for doing the hard work. I do want to ask a couple of questions, for Alice. My understanding is that the library is currently fully funded until the end of this budget cycle. Is that true?
Yes,
So those positions are paid for through the end of this budget cycle?
that is correct.
Okay, and this budget cycle ends?
July 1, or
Okay.
June 30th, actually.
So we might have been able to put people there, but we chose not to, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is it possible is it possible to save money by reducing public access, but not reducing any staff? If they did save money, can it be put into the next budget cycle? Or would it just stay in the general funds account and be spent on something else in another department?
We are proposing to reduce the staffing so that we can maintain our fund balance going forward, and we can have a slower rate of reduction in fund balance so that we can maintain essential services for a longer period of time, so that we don't run out of money in 26, we run out of money in 28.
Okay, thank you.
Are there additional questions? The way I kind of see this is you're managing our lack of revenue by reducing services now so we can have a reduced level longer rather than at some point having no service at the library. So this would allow us to maintain a library, just not at the optimal level at this time. Hopefully we can solve that problem and increase the hours again, like we just did last spring. We just increased the hours because we thought we were in a position to do so. Turns out we weren't, so we had to make a reduction. So we fluctuate hours at the library periodically. This isn't the first time. Is that a correct summary?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks. Additional questions or comments on this topic? Councilor Nishioka.
Thank you, Mayor Hoy. And thank you, Bridget. This was an excellent report, and this is what librarians do, provide you with information, correct? And good job. I also want to talk about all of our citizens who've provided written testimony in frustration with these hour changes. And I thank you for your testimony and appreciate your participation, but please know that I hope that this is short-term, temporary, that we will be able to move forward, finding revenue, and will able to bring the library back up to even more than what it had been. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Are there any additional comments? Counselor Gwynn?
Is there a reason that volunteers couldn't be trained to and vetted in a way where they could have access? Because like at the hospital, we have volunteers there who are dealing with HIPAA, for instance, and they're vetted to where they can provide those services.
One part of that as well is that although we love our volunteers, sometimes we can't rely on them. So we've seen volunteers that come in, and we have some pretty dedicated volunteers who have been there for over 10, 15 years. But there's the majority of them, if they were faced with what staff face day to day, I think there would be a high turnover. Also, it's not a common practice in libraries to have volunteers be registering patrons, having privy to that information. It's also, we take our privacy very, very seriously, so it's just something that's not practiced in libraries to allow volunteers to register patrons, to have privy to their information, that what they check out. We don't we don't save any information about what books people check out, because we value privacy, so it's something that we don't practice.
Oh, just add one more thing on that. We also have, in our union agreement, we have some provisions that call for essentially not replacing the work of our existing employees. So there's an added layer of complexity with that. Not that again, I think Bridget has outlined it well, that we try to maximize our volunteers as best we can, so we really do appreciate that perspective, Counselor. It's tough to be as a public-facing agency, we have to really commit to, when we say we're going to be open for these days and times, we can't go back and forth on that on a daily or weekly basis. So it is a challenge, and we do try to. I want it to be clear that we're saying we do very much utilize volunteers. We utilize them to the best that we can, and I think we've got some limitations with that we have to work within. So it's an excellent question and an excellent point. We just really have to kind of weigh the pros and cons of that.
Anything else on this topic? Councilor Phillips.
I'm going to be that guy just on this topic. Thank you, Scott Archer. So when it comes to volunteers, I mean, we have a yearly annual celebration for citywide volunteers. We get 100,000 hours a year or more of volunteer contribution to our city that we couldn't be Salem without their help. But with these, roles that involve, private information, is there a legal or financial risk to having someone in that position that's not paid?
Dan Atchison, City Attorney. I think legally we could train them, have them sign appropriate agreements to make sure that information is kept confidential. As volunteers, I mean, our remedy is basically to, terminate them from their volunteer status and seek civil action against them versus an employee where there's different remedies. So it becomes more difficult, but it's legally possible.
The second part of the question, thank you, was about, is there a financial risk with that? Like, I mean, if we have a data breach, is there a cost in money?
Dan Atchison, City Attorney, yes. Obviously, whether it's a volunteer or an employee, if there's an instance where our confidential patron data is released inappropriately, there's potential for liability there.
Anything else on this topic? All right, thank you everybody who responded. Thank you, Bridget and Scott. All right, anything on item 6E? Okay, that concludes information reports. We are on to second readings, as we have no first readings.
Ordinance Bill number 1723, an ordinance relating to the nonprofit corporation low-income housing tax exemption program, amending SRC sections 2.870, 2.880, 2.890, 2.900, and 2.910. Counselor Nishioka?
Aye.
Counselor Phillips?
Aye.
Counselor Gwynn?
Aye.
Counselor Gonzalez?
Aye.
Counselor Hoy?
Aye.
Counselor Nordike?
Aye.
Counselor Varney?
Aye.
Counselor Stapleton, absent. Mayor Hoy?
Aye, motion passes. All right, and with that, we are on to our 2023 year in review. Guys, we have nobody signed up under number 8. So, Mr. Staley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Courtney is going to cue this up, I believe.
Nope, she's shaking her head.
CC Media is going to
Media.
cue this up. We do have a presentation for you. It is basically bringing our 2023 community report to life with music and sound. And I think Josh has featured dancing. No, I guess not. No dancing from Josh and the budget team. But this is a little more lively way to bring our year to an end. We have had a fantastic year, and we certainly have an extraordinary year planned for next year. So with that,
How's that?
wonderful.
Yeah. Is there an ability to turn up the volume? I think we froze on the audio. Oh, there it goes again. Councilor Nordike is going to do our interpretive dance. Thank you. Yay, paved lots at the dog park. All right. Excellent.
It's pretty amazing when you look back over the course of the year and you think that all of that happened in 2023. And I'm sure that 2024 will be something similar. So stay tuned.
All right. And with that, I want to wish the entire community, all the members of council, and all our staff members a very safe and happy holiday season and a safe and sane new year. And we'll see you in 2024. We're adjourned.